Shadows in the void. The grand conclave of the seven systems glittered with the representatives of 200 species. The massive chamber, carved from a single asteroid and reinforced with crystalline supports, housed the most powerful gathering in known space. Holographic displays shimmered above each delegation, identifying species that had evolved across thousands of light years. High Chancellor Trezek of the Valkyrie Dominion raised his 4 arms for silence. Standing over 8 feet tall with iridescent scales that shifted from emerald to sapphire under the ambient lighting, he commanded respect through both physical presence and political might. The reports from the Cygnus frontier are concerning, Trezek announced, his translator converting the series of clicks and whistles into standard Galactic. 3 outposts have gone silent in the past cycle. The Medellin delegation requests military intervention. Representative Cal of the Medellin Cooperative rose. Unlike the imposing Valkyrie, the Medellins were diminutive beings with large compound eyes and delicate limbs that belied their technological prowess. Our colony on Veros Prime has been completely destroyed, Cal said, activating a holographic recording. This was captured by our automated defense systems before they too went offline. The recording showed a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design delivering precise energy strikes against the outpost's shields. What caught everyone's attention wasn't the attack itself, but the efficiency with which it was executed. The attacking ship anticipated every countermeasure, as if intimately familiar with Medellin defense protocols. We have no identification on the vessel, Cal continued. Its design matches nothing in our shared databases, and its propulsion system left no traceable energy signature. Whispers rippled through the assembly. Unknown technology was rare in a galaxy where most civilizations freely shared innovations through the Conclave's exchange programs. Admiral Zeth of the Conclave Defense Force, a veteran of border skirmishes with the isolated Nyx Imperium, studied the recording with professional interest. The attack pattern suggests tactical training beyond typical pirate operations. This was a military strike with specific objectives. From the back of the chamber, Observer Vex of the ancient Korean Watchers spoke, their voice resonating with the weight of a species that had explored the stars when most others were still developing written language. There is something familiar about this, Vex said, the universal translators struggling to convey the complex harmonics of their speech. The precision, the targeting of communication arrays first. It reminds me of strategies documented in the Forbidden Archives. Chancellor Trezek visibly stiffened. The archives are sealed by unanimous agreement of the founding species. Whatever comparison you wish to make, Observer Vex, should be presented through proper protocols. The Korean inclined their luminous head. Forgiveness, Chancellor. I merely observe patterns. History echoes, even when we choose not to listen. Before Trezek could respond, emergency signals blared throughout the chamber. A harried Valkyrie communications officer rushed in, bypassing security protocols in a manner that would normally result in immediate detention. Chancellor, urgent communication from the Helios Deep Space Array, the officer said, mandibles clicking in distress. They've detected a massive energy signature emerging from the Cerberus Nebula. It's a fleet, sir. Over 200 vessels of unknown configuration. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Cerberus Nebula had been designated uninhabitable centuries ago due to intense radiation and gravitational anomalies. No known species had established presence there. The main display activated, showing real-time feed from the Helios Array. What emerged from the swirling cosmic clouds wasn't merely a fleet. It was an armada of ships with sleek, predatory designs. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, creating the impression of mobile shadows sliding through space. At the center of the formation flew a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Conclave's flagship. As the assembly watched in stunned silence, a communication request registered on all channels simultaneously, bypassing encryption protocols that had been considered unbreakable. The face that appeared on the main display sent shockwaves through the assembly. The being had no scales, no mandibles, no tentacles or compound eyes. Instead, it possessed smooth skin, forward-facing eyes, and a flat nose above a mouth with blunt teeth. Recognition dawned slowly among the elder representatives. "Impossible," whispered Chancellor Trezek. The being spoke in perfect standard Galactic. "I am Fleet Admiral Elena Shirova of the Earth Reclamation Force. After 3 centuries of exile, humanity has returned to reclaim what was taken from us. The humans, a species believed extinct for generations, eliminated during the Purification Wars that no living diplomat officially acknowledged, had returned from the shadows." Admiral Shirova's eyes seemed to meet each representative's gaze simultaneously. "We request an immediate audience with the conclave leadership. You have 6 hours to prepare your delegation. After that time, we will consider diplomatic options exhausted." The transmission ended, leaving the conclave in stunned silence. Admiral Zeth was the first to recover. "Chancellor, our defensive capabilities would be meaningless against what we just witnessed," Trezek interrupted. "Their technology has clearly advanced beyond our understanding." Observer Vex moved to the center of the chamber, their ancient eyes reflecting the starlight. "The Forgotten Ones have returned. The circle completes itself." Within the hour, an emergency council was convened in the secured chambers beneath the conclave hall. Representatives from the 7 systems sat around a table carved from black matter, harvested from a collapsed star, a symbolic reminder of the weighty decisions made here. "The historical records are clear," said Archivist Mila of the Kareen, accessing files that required 7-tier authorization. 322 cycles ago, humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. Their adaptive capabilities and aggressive expansion threatened the established order. "Those records were written by the victors," Observer Vex countered. "The Kareem delegation of that era registered formal protest against the Purification Initiative." Chancellor Trezek slammed his primary hands on the table. "Ancient politics are irrelevant. We face an immediate crisis. If these humans have been hiding in the Cerberus Nebula all this time, developing technology in isolation, then we grossly underestimated them," completed Admiral Zeth. "The Purification Fleet reported Earth's destruction and the elimination of all human colonies. Clearly, some escaped. Representative Cal manipulated a series of holographic displays. The attack pattern on our outposts matches perfectly with historical human military doctrine: surgical strikes against communication capabilities, followed by precision targeting of power generation. They've been testing our defenses," Zeth realized, "probing for weaknesses before revealing themselves." The chamber doors opened, admitting a Valkyrie security team escorting a single figure. Unlike the imposing Admiral Shirova from the transmission, this human was smaller, with darker skin and gray at the temples. He wore simple attire with no visible weapons or technology. "This individual approached our outer perimeter 10 minutes ago," reported the security lead. "He identified himself as a human diplomatic envoy and surrendered voluntarily." The human bowed slightly. "Dr. Marcus Chen, representing the Earth Provisional Government. I'm here to facilitate understanding before Admiral Shirova's arrival." Chancellor Trezek recovered quickly. "You infiltrated our most secure facility without detection." Dr. Chen smiled faintly. "Chancellor, if we wished you harm, this conversation wouldn't be happening. I'm here because despite our history, humanity prefers dialogue to destruction." "Bold words from a species that was defeated," Cal said. "Were we?" Chen asked, raising an eyebrow. "History is rarely as simple as the victors claim. For 3 centuries, we've watched from the shadows as you built your conclave on the foundation of our supposed extinction. We've intercepted your communications, studied your technological development, and learned your languages while you forgot ours. Why reveal yourselves now?" Observer Vex asked, ancient eyes studying the human with undisguised fascination. "Because the lies that justify our eradication are beginning to unravel," Chen replied. "And because what's coming for all of us won't be stopped unless we stand together." The reckoning. The diplomatic chamber aboard the human flagship Restoration defied alien expectations. Instead of displaying military might or technological superiority, the humans had created a space that evoked natural environments from their homeworld. Living plants grew along the walls, water flowed through transparent channels in the floor, and the lighting mimicked the warm glow of Earth's sun. Chancellor Trezek, accompanied by representatives from the Seven Systems, tried to maintain diplomatic composure despite his obvious discomfort. The human ship had allowed their shuttle to dock without scanning, a gesture that conveyed either tremendous confidence or reckless arrogance. Admiral Shirova entered without ceremony, her uniform adorned with symbols that meant nothing to the alien delegation. Unlike the formal proceedings of the conclave, where position and species determined speaking order, she immediately gestured for everyone to sit in a circular arrangement where no position held prominence. "Thank you for accepting our invitation," Shirova began, her voice carrying the same authority it had during the transmission, but with surprising warmth. 3 centuries of separation have created many misconceptions. Today, we begin correcting them. Trezek's translator struggled to convey the complex harmonics of his response. The conclave acknowledges your unexpected survival. However, your military posturing suggests intentions inconsistent with peaceful dialogue. Shirova nodded to Dr. Chen, who activated a holographic display in the center of the circle. It showed the galaxy with various points illuminated in different colors. The red markers indicate former human settlements, Chen explained. 87 worlds across 26 star systems, with a combined population of 12 billion at the time of the purification. The display shifted, showing recordings that caused several delegates to shift uncomfortably. They depicted massive warships bombarding planetary surfaces, turning once vibrant worlds into molten rock. The official conclave records state that humanity initiated hostilities by deploying prohibited weapons against Valkyrie colonies. Chen continued. This justified the formation of the Coalition of Order and the subsequent purification campaign. Chancellor Trezek straightened. Historical records are clear. Historical records are fabrications, Shirova interrupted, her voice sharp enough to silence the much larger alien. We've had 3 centuries to recover data from outposts that escaped destruction. What we found revealed the truth about why humanity needed to be eliminated. The hologram changed again, displaying scientific data and genetic sequences. Project Genesis, Chen said. A classified initiative conducted by Valkyrie scientists 5 centuries ago when they first encountered human DNA. Observer Vex leaned forward, ancient eyes widening. The adaptive genome theory. It was dismissed as speculative. It was suppressed, Chen corrected. Human genetic structure contains adaptation capabilities unlike any known species. Given sufficient time and environmental pressure, humans can evolve solutions to almost any challenge. The Valkyrie discovered that our genetic potential threatened their evolutionary superiority doctrine. Chancellor Trezek's scales darkened with anger. These accusations are baseless. The Coalition of Order acted to prevent human aggression from destabilizing established territories. The Coalition acted to eliminate a species that represented a biological challenge to Valkyrie supremacy, Shirova countered. The alleged human attacks were conducted by Valkyrie operatives using captured human vessels. We have the command logs, Chancellor. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled among the delegates. Representative Cal of the Medillans was the first to respond. If what you claim is true, Cal said carefully, why wait 3 centuries to present this evidence? Why not appeal to the conclave earlier? Admiral Shirova's expression hardened. Because survival required patience. The remnants of humanity, barely 2 million souls, escaped to the Cerberus Nebula with nothing but determination and the few ships that survived the initial assault. We needed time to rebuild, to develop technologies that would ensure we could never be targeted for extinction again. The holographic display shifted once more, showing the nebula that had hidden humanity. The swirling gases and radiation that made it appear uninhabitable were actually part of an elaborate cloaking system, concealing massive habitats and shipyards. While the conclave believed us extinct, We transformed our disaster into opportunity. Shirova continued. Necessity drove innovation. Without access to traditional resources, we developed alternative technologies, including the phase shift drives that allow our ships to travel without conventional propulsion signatures. Observer Vex studied the human admiral with newfound respect. You could have struck at any time during the past century. Our defenses would have been ineffective against your advancements, yet you chose revelation over retribution. Because extinction is never justice, Dr. Chen replied simply, even for those who attempted it against us. Before Chancellor Trezek could respond, emergency alerts sounded throughout the ship. A human officer entered and whispered urgently to Admiral Shirova, whose expression immediately darkened. It seems our conversation has attracted unwanted attention, she announced. A fleet has just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of this system. Valkyrie dreadnoughts, not bearing conclave identification. The main viewer activated, showing massive warships of distinctly Valkyrie design, but lacking the conclave markings that signify their allegiance to the unified government. The Purity Doctrine fleet, Chancellor Trezek whispered, his scales paling to a sickly blue. They shouldn't be here. They answer to the High Command, not the Chancellery. They're powering weapons, reported a human tactical officer. Admiral Shirova turned to the alien delegation. It appears some within your government preferred to eliminate evidence rather than face accountability. You have a choice to make, Chancellor. Stand with those who would continue the lies of the past, or help establish a new truth. For a moment, the massive Valkyrie leader seemed frozen in indecision. Then, drawing himself to his full height, he activated his personal communication device. This is High Chancellor Trezek to all conclave vessels. The approaching Valkyrie fleet operates without authorization. They are to be considered hostile to conclave interests. Defensive positions, immediate deployment. Shirova nodded approvingly. Commander Pierce, bring all defense systems online. Tactical formation Delta. Protect the conclave vessels. The human flagship shuddered slightly as it accelerated, positioning itself between the approaching Valkyrie fleet and the smaller conclave escort ships. Throughout the diplomatic chamber, the alien delegation watched in amazement as human officers coordinated with mechanical precision. You're outnumbered, Cal observed, studying the tactical display. Dr. Chen smiled faintly. Numbers cease to be the determining factor in combat once we develop neural link targeting systems. Watch. As the Valkyrie fleet opened fire, expecting to overwhelm the human ships through superior firepower, something remarkable happened. The human vessels performed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, their phase shift drives allowing them to reposition faster than targeting systems could track. The first volley from the human fleet demonstrated the disparity in technology that 3 centuries of isolated development had created. Precision strikes disabled the Valkyrie ship's propulsion and weapons without destroying the vessels themselves. We're not here to perpetuate cycles of destruction, Shirova explained as the alien delegation watched the one-sided engagement. Humanity remembers what it means to face extinction. We won't inflict that fate on others, even those who once saw our elimination. Within 20 minutes, the Valkyrie fleet had been neutralized without a single ship destroyed. The human tactical teams had systematically disabled every critical system, while leaving life support intact, a display of precision that sent a clear message about their capabilities. Chancellor Trezek turned to Admiral Shirova, all 4 hands open in a Valkyrie gesture of respect. The Conclave owes humanity a debt that cannot be calculated. I formally request emergency session privileges to address the historical record. History is important, Shirova agreed, but our focus must be on the future. The Valkyrie High Command acted from fear of human potential. That fear drove them to near genocide. We need to ensure such fear never again determines policy. Observer Vex, who had remained silent during the confrontation, finally spoke. Admiral, what exactly does humanity want? Reparations, territory, conclave membership. We want recognition, Dr. Chen answered. Recognition of what was done to us, and acknowledgement of our right to exist without persecution. Beyond that, we seek alliance, because what drove us to reveal ourselves now wasn't vengeance, but necessity. The holographic display changed again, showing disturbing readings from beyond the galactic rim. 3 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected these signals. We've spent the time since confirming our findings and preparing this fleet. The alien delegates studied the data with growing concern. This energy pattern, Kal said, it doesn't conform to any known technology. It's not technology as we understand it, Shirova confirmed. Based on our analysis, it's a biological-mechanical hybrid consciousness that consumes stars for energy. We call them the harvesters. Their course will bring them to populated systems within 2 years. You could have fled, Chancellor Trezek realized. Taken your advanced technology and found sanctuary in unexplored regions. We could have, Chen acknowledged. But Earth was our home once. This galaxy, despite everything, is where humanity belongs. We won't abandon it, or the other species who share it, to destruction. Reclamation. The combined fleet stretched across the view screen of the command center, the largest military force ever assembled in known space. Human vessels formed the central spearhead, their phase-shift technology providing mobility advantages that conventional ships couldn't match. Flanking them were the massive dreadnoughts of the Conclave, bristling with weaponry that had been upgraded with human targeting systems. 8 months had transformed ancient enemies into desperate allies, as the first harvester vessels breached the outer defense perimeter established at the Helios cluster. That alliance faced its ultimate test. Admiral Shirova stood at the command podium aboard the Restoration, now designated as the fleet's coordination hub. Around her, officers from 17 species worked in concert, their differences set aside in the face of extinction. Harvester Vanguard has breached the sensor net, reported Commander Lena Ivanova, the Restoration's tactical officer. Pattern matches simulation Alpha 7. Dispersed approach vectors designed to defy our response. Shirova nodded, studying the tactical display where red indicators represented the incoming threat. The harvester's ships resembled massive organic structures more than conventional vessels, with surfaces that pulsed with internal energy. Initial encounters had revealed their disturbing method of attack. They didn't destroy planets but instead extracted their core energy, leaving behind lifeless husks. Execute Thunderhead Protocol, Shirova ordered. All Phase 1 vessels, prepare singularity deployment. Chancellor Trezek, who had insisted on commanding the Conclave forces personally, opened a secure channel. Admiral, the harvesters have changed course. They're accelerating toward the Middle Colony world. As anticipated, Shirova replied. They prioritize densely populated worlds with active energy signatures. Commander Pierce, signal the Medullan defense grid to initiate the pulse sequence. On the tactical display, the seemingly vulnerable Medullan colony suddenly emitted a complex energy pattern. The approaching harvester vessels hesitated, their organic mechanical systems confused by the signal that mimicked their own communication methods. They're diverting processing power to analyze the signal, Dr. Chen observed from his station, where he coordinated the scientific response team. Defensive capabilities temporarily reduced by approximately 30%. All vessels, execute primary strike package, Shirova commanded. The human fleet moved with synchronized precision, their phase shift drives allowing them to appear almost simultaneously around the disoriented harvester Vanguard. The weapons they deployed weren't conventional energy beams or projectiles, but focused gravitational distortions that targeted the unique biological components of the enemy vessels. The harvester ships convulsed as their internal structures were disrupted at the molecular level. Several of the smaller vessels began to break apart, their organic components separating from their mechanical frameworks. First wave neutralization at 62%, reported Commander Ivanova, significantly better than simulation projections. The celebration was short-lived. The remaining harvester vessels adapted with disturbing speed, their surfaces rippling as they reconfigured to resist the gravitational attacks. They're learning, Dr. Chen warned. shifting their molecular structure to distribute stress loads. Effectiveness of gravitational weapons declining rapidly. Chancellor Trezik's massive dreadnoughts moved into position, their conventional weapons modified with human targeting systems. Conclave vessels commencing bombardment pattern Epsilon. The space between the fleets erupted with energy as thousands of weapons fired simultaneously. The harvesters absorbed the initial assault, their hulls glowing with captured energy, but the sustained barrage eventually overwhelmed their adaptive capabilities. Several of the larger vessels began to fragment, releasing clouds of smaller entities that resembled mechanical spores. Containment protocol. Sharova ordered sharply. Those are cedar units. If they reach a planetary surface, they'll begin converting all available biomass. The human fleet's secondary vessels deployed electromagnetic nets, capturing most of the cedar units before they could disperse. Those that escaped were targeted by precision strikes from specialized interceptors. For 6 hours, the battle raged across the Helios cluster. The combined fleet suffered significant losses, particularly among the conventional conclave vessels that couldn't match the harvesters' adaptive capabilities. But the human phase shift technology provided the critical advantage, allowing them to reposition faster than the enemy could adapt. As the last of the harvester vanguard disintegrated under concentrated fire, Admiral Sharova finally allowed herself a moment to assess the damage. 23 human ships lost, 46 conclave vessels destroyed, and hundreds more damaged to varying degrees. The cost had been high, but the defensive line had held. "They'll send more," Dr. Chen said quietly, joining her at the command podium. "This was just their exploratory force. Our long-range sensors detect much larger concentrations preparing to move in system." Sharova nodded grimly. "But we've proven they can be fought. Their adaptation has limits, especially when confronted with multiple attack vectors simultaneously." The command center doors opened to admit an unexpected visitor. Observer Vex of the Careen entered slowly, their ancient eyes taking in the organized chaos of the battle's aftermath. "Admiral," Vex greeted her, their voice carrying the harmonics of their species' formal respect. "The Conclave Council has completed its emergency session. I bring their unanimous decision." Sharova straightened, prepared for yet another political complication at the worst possible moment. "We're rather busy ensuring our mutual survival, Observer." "That is precisely why I am here," Vex replied. "The Council has voted to formally recognize the sovereignty of humanity and to acknowledge the historical injustice of the purification campaign." While this announcement would have been momentous under normal circumstances, in the aftermath of battle it seemed almost trivial. However, Vex wasn't finished. Further, in recognition of humanity's technological superiority and tactical expertise demonstrated in this conflict, the Council has requested that you assume supreme command of all conclave military assets for the duration of the Harvester threat. The command center fell silent. Even Chancellor Trezik, whose species had orchestrated humanity's near extinction, nodded in agreement from his transmission. 3 centuries ago, fear of human potential drove the Valkyrie to attempt genocide, Trezik said, his massive form diminished somehow by the admission. Today, that same potential represents our only hope for survival. Admiral Sharova studied the tactical display, where the real-time movements of the approaching Harvester main fleet were being tracked. They had months, perhaps, before the next engagement, an engagement that would determine the fate of all sentient life in the galaxy. "I accept command," she said finally, "with conditions. The new fleet structure will integrate human and conclave vessels at all levels. Knowledge sharing will be mandatory, not optional. And when this threat is neutralized, we establish a new governing council where all species have equal representation, regardless of technological development or territorial holdings." Observer Vex's ancient eyes gleamed with something like satisfaction. The old giving way to the new. The circle completes itself. As the command center returned to its methodical preparation for the coming conflict, Dr. Chen joined Admiral Sharova at the viewport. Beyond the armored glass, the stars shone with the same indifferent light they had when humanity faced extinction centuries before. "Do you think we can win?" Chen asked quietly, his scientific objectivity momentarily set aside. Sharova considered the question carefully. 300 years ago, a few million humans fled into an uninhabitable nebula with nothing but determination and the will to survive. We didn't just endure, we thrived, developed technologies our ancestors couldn't have imagined, and returned stronger than when we left. She turned from the viewport to face the command center, where humans worked alongside the very species that had once sought their elimination. Adaptation isn't just in our genetics, Marcus. It's in our spirit. The harvesters may evolve their physical forms, but we evolve our societies, our technologies, our very consciousness. They consume worlds. We learn from them. In the depths of space, the remnants of the Harvester Vanguard transmitted their dying analysis back to their approaching main fleet, a warning about the unexpected resistance they had encountered. The analysis included extensive data about human attack patterns, defensive capabilities, and technological specifications. What it couldn't quantify, couldn't measure or predict, was the quality that had allowed a nearly extinct species to rise from the ashes and return to reclaim their place among the stars. The quality that now united former enemies against a common threat. The intangible, immeasurable human capacity for hope in the face of impossible odds. The reckoning had come, not as humanity's vengeance against those who had wronged them, but as redemption for an entire galaxy that now faced the ultimate test together. Aboard the Restoration, Admiral Elena Sharova gave the order that would begin humanity's greatest challenge. All ships, prepare for Phase 2 deployment. We're taking the fight to them. The combined fleet of 17 species, led by those once thought extinct, moved as one into the darkness, not in retreat, but in defiance. Humanity had returned, and this time they wouldn't stand alone.